Hey guys, Hypernews here, and today I'm going to address a portion of my fans that I've been ignoring for a bit too long, which is my people who like visual novels, which I haven't updated since that Muv-Luv Alternative review. Remember that fun-filled review with all the rage and all the fun stuff? I love that review. I look back at it and it's so funny how angry I was. But now I think about Muv-Luv Alternative and I'm like, I don't give a crap anymore. But I have neglected to talk about two visual novels in particular that people have been wanting me to review, which is The Rest of Rosegun's Days and House in Fata Morgana. I know this isn't exactly what you guys wanted. This is more of an off the cuff thing. It's a little bit of fun. It's not scripted or anything like that. So it's not going to be exactly what you guys wanted, what you got in the other reviews. So I'm sorry about that, but I will come back and do the proper reviews later. But for now, I'm just going to at least talk about what my general thoughts on those are. And a few other visual novels as well, because why not? Oh, and the other thing is, I'm sorry for the reason is my booth situation is not good right now. I just uncomfortable to use what I use for a booth, and it's just horrible. And that's kind of made doing fan dubs and doing reviews not a lot of fun. And I want them to always be fun to do. So I really am trying to invest in a better booth, and hopefully when I get that, I'll get way more content out. But for now, just bear with me. If you guys hate this, then I won't do it again. But if this is okay with you guys, then we'll keep on doing it. But let's move on. So as for Rosegun's Days and House in Fata Morgana, there's one thing I need to say about both of these visual novels. These are the two visual novels I would recommend to someone who, maybe started with Phoenix, right? And they wanted, some good visual novels to read. These are the two I would recommend over any other visual novel. Any other visual novel. Because they are that good. And they're not horrifically long either. They're long, but they're not Umineko long. That's the reason I couldn't recommend Umineko to someone who isn't a hardcore visual novel fan. Because it's just way, way too long. You've got to be really passionate about the medium before you're willing to read Umineko. But both of those, they are as good as visual novels get. In fact, I will say, Rosegun's Days in particular is my favorite visual novel. I know I only did a season 1 review, but I love season 2, I love season 3, I love season 4, I loved it all. And I'll talk about some slight spoilers there. I'm not going to get too in depth about Rosegun's Days because, it's worth a reread. And that's the other thing. Rosegun's Days is the only visual novel I'm willing to reread. In fact, I have reread some of it, and I enjoyed the hell out of it because it's so goddamn good. It has the cast of characters where they're all consistently good. They're all, at least get a reasonable amount of development. Some more than others. Obviously, Rose and Wayne, I would say, get the most development in that game. The thing is, the cast is all good. And I think it's because it's not written with the premise of being about a guy and a bunch of girls. It's not one of those visual novels. I know neither was Umineko, but Umineko still had a really high proportion of females to male characters, I would say. Especially in terms of the main interactions you see. Where this one, it's, pretty well-rounded. Like, side characters are getting plenty of screen time. And it's a balance of males and females. And all the characters are just written really, really well. The setting is really well explored, and it delivers on the drama front too. I'm not saying Rosegun's. The one thing I want to emphasize is like people think I'm just a Ryukishi fanboy. I'm not. I actually don't really like Higurashi that much, and I didn't really like Hingenbana that much. And Tri-Anthology doesn't look that good to me. I haven't read it, so I can't say, but it doesn't look that good to me. I'm not really interested in reading it. I have no interest in Iwaihime, so I'm not trying to defend myself or anything. I do love Umineko and I do love Rosegun's Days a lot. And you might wonder, why do I like Rose Guns Days more than Umineko? And it really is the cast of characters. It just clicks with me a lot more. They all click with me a lot more. I like the cast of characters than Umineko. I would say Umineko has more depth than Rose Guns Days, but I would say Rose Guns Days was a more entertaining visual novel. Like, just so good. I cannot emphasize how much I love that game. And House and Fata Morgana is, on the other spectrum, a really well written game. It's a much more mature game. It does have its, it has its occasional little anime goofy moments, but for the most part, it's what you would recommend to someone if they're looking for something a little more restrained, a little more mature. The art isn't anime at all. It doesn't really remind you of anime. It's kind of like, watching Monster. It's like, it's good, but it doesn't really, you can recommend it to someone who doesn't like anime. Cowboy Bebop, you can recommend it to someone who doesn't like anime. And I would say House and Fata Morgana and Rose Guns Days are both of those. Like, even if someone didn't like anime, they could still enjoy those too. The main flaw, I would say, with Rose Guns Days was probably the ending's a little rushed, but I still really liked the ending, and I still really liked a lot of things about the ending. It's not, it's not the perfect way for it to end, but the whole adventure was so much fun that I didn't care. I didn't care that it wasn't like a perfect ending like I would say Umineko was, or even House on Fata Morgana had a really good ending as well. So anyway, if you value my opinion at all, which you might not anymore because I bashed Mobile Level Alternative, but if you value my opinion at all, then please read these games. These are the ones I would put in the front over any other. I don't want to go too in depth about House and Fata Morgana because I think that one I just need to reread bits of it to really get a good look at it, just to make sure I have a better understanding of it, because it is kind of a complicated story. And same with Rose Guns Days. I feel like I need to reread bits of that because that visual novel is actually much more complicated than it seems. It's not just, your Hollywood action flick. It actually does get very complicated. For now, we'll go into, some slight spoiler territory for Rose Guns Days, so if you haven't read it, then don't go here. So I reviewed Season 1, loved it. Season 2, loved it. There is that one scene that people complain about because Leo was so overpowered because he took out all those men all by himself. I remember people complaining about that. And the way I see it is, well, yeah, he did do that. And I think that was just their way of really giving you a final bit of really awesome badassery from Leo. Because in hindsight, that scene isn't really that important to the plot. It's just there to make Leo seem really badass. In which he is. Let's just be honest. Leo is as badass as a visual novel character gets. In fact, I'd say he's the most badass. I like Alan a little bit more, to be honest, and Alan's my girlfriend's favorite, because go figure, he's a little bit more like me, I would say, as well. Not that that's saying anything, but I love that scene because it's badass, so I have no complaint about that. I love how Season 1 played out. I thought it was really great. Thought Caleb was a good villain, but in Season 2, Wang was an even better villain. He had so much more personality, he had so much more character, he was so threatening in a way where he wasn't just in your face threatening. I don't got any problem with Caleb, I just thought Wang was a little bit more well-rounded as a villain, but Zell was, she at many points came close to me just going, she is my favorite visual novel heroine. It really was like that. I loved her character. I loved everything about her character. There's so many moments with her that I almost got brought to tears, to be honest, when she started talking about her past and how, Rose, was helping her and that no one else would help her. Man, that moment almost brought me to tears. I loved her character. I loved it. I loved that whole chapter. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a huge shonen fan, and Season 2 is kind of shonen-y with a bunch of underdogs training and getting better. It is kind of shonen-y, so people wondered if I would like Season 2. No, I loved Season 2. And that's why in Season 3, I won't spoil it exactly, because just in case someone's listening, when, you know what happens in Season 3 when one of them kind of kicks the dust. And this is the thing about Rose Guns Days, is it was such a fun ride, but it's also such a ow, my heart kind of ride. Geez, it was really, really, really harsh at times. This is why I couldn't review Rose Guns Days right away, because when I was thinking about Rose Guns Days, I was just like, I loved it, but ouch. It's like, oh, it was a bit of a bummer. And then the other character they kill at the end of the game, it just like, oh my god, really? Oh my god, it was a lot to take in. But season two, fantastic. I loved every second of it. There was no complaints about it. Some people might have thought it was boring because it's not as drama filled. It was more about wandering dogs, a bunch of underdogs getting better. But I love that whole arc. I thought it gave the setting a lot more care because it showed you like the side of society of people who are lower than the main characters. So I liked all that. I thought it was fantastic. And plus, Wang was a really good villain. But then Gabriel came into the picture. And Gabriel is the best visual novel character ever. No, I'm just kidding. But he's a really, really good villain. I think all of us can agree. He's like the most popular character in the game, I'm pretty sure. Other than Butler, because people got Battler feels or something. But, God, what a jackass. What a jackass, but what a fantastic villain. This is how you do a villain right. He is such a fucking asshole that it's just... I feel like in Umineko, a lot of the times when the characters were being assholes, it was a little too much tell and not a lot of show in a lot of cases, and it was a little... just too much at times. Like, it was over and over again. They kept trolling you over and over again. And I feel like Ryukishi really perfected his perfect kind of asshole character with Gabriel, because he's just so smoothly an asshole. Like how what he does to Butler, what he does to his whole psyche, that's just, oh man, it was hard to see, even though Butler himself is kind of, can be kind of a prick in the way he's so selfish in a lot of ways. But I still cared about Butler. I still felt bad for the guy. Of course, all the things he does, all the people he gets killed, it really, really hurts. And this is another reason, though, why the visual novel resonates so strongly with me, is because it actually killed characters for good. In season two, when they kept Caleb alive, I was like, what? I was like, that's weird. But then it's like they kept Caleb alive, but then they kill all the characters they did in season three, and I'm like, what? It was so harsh to take in, but it was absolutely brilliant. And one thing I have to mention, the most badass moment I think I've ever read in anything ever happened in Rose Guns Days. And it's probably the best thing I think Ryukishi's ever written, in a way. I don't know if anyone else felt this way, but this is how I felt while reading this scene. In season 3, during the whole sniper thing where Keith is protecting Stella and Yuji, where Alan is also protecting Yuki from that whole little fest thing, and where you think, oh my god, Stella and Yuki are gonna die. That whole scene is great by itself, right? Because it's so intense. It's so, because the visual novel did such a good job of making you care about these characters. Jesus Christ, when I read that scene, I just... I'm just being real with you in this whole thing, but I was heart pumping the entire time reading that scene. And then Stella did die, and that sucked. That sucked really bad. And then it immediately flips over, and you think Yuki's gonna die as well. But then Meiju comes out and kicks the guy's ass. And so does the little girl, I forget her name, the little Chinese girl. And that is the most badass scene ever. Because Ryukishi basically has painted you into despair because Stella died, so of course Yuki's gonna die as well. Because he actually did go and kill an important character. But then he came back and he saved a character. And that just gave you this, it gave me this big jump of joy. I was screaming when that moment happened. I loved it. I cannot talk about that moment enough. That is my favorite visual novel moment in anything ever. I mean, it is a shame that Yuki still ended up dying, and God damn, that scene sucked so bad to read. I was not good. And I love Alan so much. I loved Alan and Yuki so much. I love their whole relationship. It's like basically what I would consider almost the perfect romance, And even though we didn't see a ton of it, Ryukishi really is better at writing romance than a lot of these visual novel writers. It's kind of strange. That whole scene just messed me up. But still, you didn't know that Yuki was still gonna die. But fucking killing Yuki and Oliver at once. Oh God, it was so bad. Oh Jesus, it's just talking about it makes me upset. Really, really, those moments in the visual novel were so great. So I will say season 3 was the best part of the visual novel. And then season 4 came in and all the badasses came back. Leo came back, Zell came back, Alan came back. The whole Richard thing sucks, too. The Richard, going through all that crap. And then dying the way he did at the end. It was harsh. It was harsh, man. That all sucked. The main thing about season 4 is I don't think we spent enough time with Jean in particular. I think that was the main problem I would say about it. I think they did that part a little too quickly. They introduced her character a little too late. I get the reasoning, and I like the whole why people didn't support Richard as opposed to the Rose at the end. I get that. I like that whole thing. But I wasn't a big fan of that Jean's character was just done so quickly. I thought her character was great, don't get me wrong. I think she was still a good character. It's just making you accept that she's going to be the madam from now on. I think season 4 didn't necessarily choose the most convincing path on that. Still, the whole situation at the end was very, very exciting, and I didn't expect Cyrus to beat Leo at the end, but he still died, and that also really sucked. And that's the thing about Rose Guns Days in general, is that I don't have much to say about Season 4, because Season 4 was kind of short, but it was good to see everyone again, and it was good to see all their little interactions, and it was very satisfying for Zell to beat that guy who got Oliver killed. That was extraordinarily satisfying. And of course, Alan dying was... Jesus Christ, game, what are you doing to me? I couldn't believe I couldn't believe Ryukishi, the balls of Ryukishi. And this is what I meant in, Love Love Alternative. It's like, you don't have to kill every character. Just kill the characters you think will work. Will do something and will affect, and I think Rose Guns Days chose very wisely which characters to kill while still keeping the audience's hope up, that it's not all misery at the end. But it's just, for such a fun ride to end on kind of a bummer note is, I think why some people might not like Rose Guns Days at the end, but it's definitely my favorite visual novel, and I could read it again, but I'd have to go through the pain again, and that's gonna suck. And that's the end of my thoughts on Rose Guns Days. So let's touch on something else. Let's just keep this going for a little bit more. Why didn't I review seasons 2 through 4 of Rose Guns Days? Why did I do that? Well, the thing is, Steins Gate Zero came out, and I was like, crap. I was in the middle of reading Rose Guns Days. I was like a little bit into season 2, and I was like, okay, I will take a break for now because I'm at a good stopping place, and I will read Steins Gate Zero. And what happened with Steins Gate Zero is, as I said in my review, I did not like Steins Gate Zero really at all. Like, there's okay bits about it, and there's okay bits about every visual novel. But I did not like it. And it kind of deflated me, because I had just read that year so many disappointing visual novels. I had read 2 visual novels I absolutely hated. And I'll admit, one, I was not completely honest in my review, and that is Tsubahibi, which came out on Steam recently. And the reason is I didn't want to like buzzkill people who were excited for it, because people really, really were excited for it. And I even felt my review was a buzzkill. I just kind of wanted to give some initial impressions, because I did that review because I thought it was going to come out soon afterwards, and it didn't come out for like 2 years after my review. It was crazy. But it came out and everyone's read it, and some people like it, some people don't, and that's all good. But I hated that game pretty passionately. I'll admit, I hate that game. The parts I liked, I did kind of like. I did like, when I said I liked It's My Own Invention in Tsubaibi, I meant I liked the creativity of it to some degree. I liked some of it, but I agree with the guy who responded to me that it was too long and boring. Yes, it definitely was way too long. And it definitely had so many bad scenes in it. And the acting just wasn't there for too many characters. I know this might not bother everyone, but I understand Japanese, so I actually do have an appreciation for good voice acting. And by the way, Rose Guns Days, if it ever gets a PS4 port or something and gets audio, Junichi Suwabe needs to play Leo. Needs to happen. Needs to happen. He's the perfect choice, and I won't accept anyone else. But Tsubahibi, I passionately hated that visual novel. I passionately... I like Down the Rabbit Hole 1, okay. I didn't really have any problems with Down the Rabbit Hole. Well, no, not 1, 2. 2, that's right. I didn't have any problems with that, but then the rest of the game, I kind of got to a moment where I was like, I hate this game. I hate this game. But I was too stubborn to drop anything back in the day. Anything. I would not drop any visual novel I was reading. And I should have. And through reviewing Love Love Alternative, it kind of taught me to value my time more. I would have not finished Tsubahibi if I read it with my current mindset, because the second I was not enjoying myself for hours on end, I would have just dropped it. And that's what I should have done. Even if I couldn't give you guys a review, I should have just dropped it and said, I'm sorry, I don't like that game. The other visual novel I read, which is, out of any story game that's not a Karage, there is a Karage I hate more, actually, which is some random one I read where all the characters were shit. And it was horrible, horrible, horrible. I don't ever want to mention that. And it wasn't School Days. It was some other piece of shit. I've never read School Days, and I never will read School Days. I've seen the anime. It was a piece of fucking shit, of course. Komyu. If my girlfriend wants to trigger me, she just will mention Komyu. I hate that visual novel still. It's like Mother Love Alternative, I think about it now, I'm like, it was kind of a waste of time, but it was, whatever. It's not something I remember that fondly, but it's more of a big whatever about it at this point. Or Komyu, if just thinking about moments of that game piss me off. And that sucks, because I like the common route of that game. I think that's why it was so bad for me, is because I actually enjoyed the common route, and then the rest of the game was just such a piece of garbage. And I just... So, Komyu, Tsubahibi, and Steins Gate Zero kind of deflated me, so I did not actually get around to playing Rose Guns Days and reading the rest of it for quite a while afterwards. And after a while, I just wasn't enjoying visual novels anymore. And I just needed this massive break. So I didn't read any visual novels for like 7 months or so. So what happened is I didn't read any, and then I went back to it. I read a few Karages, but I went to them with a mindset that 3 hours. You got 3 hours. And if I'm not enjoying myself, and I know, I'm just got to be honest with myself. I value my time too much these days, and I got stuff to work on, and I've got spend time with my girlfriend, and I value my time too much to waste any more than that on something I'm not really digging. So I got 3 hours, and so I've been reading recent Karages, and I think I dropped 5 until I got to one I was finally digging, and that is Gin Iro Haruka. This is a Kirage that came out, I think last year, maybe. I don't really remember when it came out. It is by the same people who made Hoshi Ori Yume Mirai, which doesn't have a translation patch, unfortunately, for people who want to read it, but Hatsukai 101 does. And from what I've not read that one, but from what I've read, it doesn't seem nearly as good as Hoshi Ori Yume Mirai, which was, an okay visual novel. It was definitely, people over glamify, say it's a lot better than it actually is. But to me, Ginero Haruka is the real deal. That is a great Karage. In fact, it might be the best Karage I've ever read. I know that's not saying much because it's just a Karage, and Karages are inherently, not too great. They're kind of guilty pleasures. I enjoy them because they're relaxing. Hinata in Giniro Haruka. I know some people find her voice annoying, but she is my favorite girl in any Karage ever. I love her character. She just hits all my notes. She's friendly, she's energetic, she's somewhat flirtatious, she has her cute shy moments. It's just all of that. And yet she's not like unnatural with the main character. She has a lot of fun moments with the main character. And the main character also isn't just your blandy bland McGee protagonist. He's kind of, not amazing. I doubt I'd remember him much after the game, but at least he contributes something to the relationship other than just being your kind of typical normal straight guy protagonist. Still would it be better if he had a voice, but it's a Karage. They don't do voices in Karages. And that's the one that I really, really like. And the reason I don't do Karage reviews, though, is because they're very, 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 very subjective. A lot of people use this concept of best girl when the real, they do this because they're being elitist. Hey, you guys, shut up. They use this concept of best girl, right? And whatever, they could do that. I'm not gonna be able to stop them. But it's really just dependent on your personal taste. Like a lot of people in the game I'm reading think Bethely's the best girl because she's technically the main girl. But to me, Hinata really appeals to my taste. You guys know me, and if you don't, I really like redheads, so I'm automatically gonna like the redhead, orange-haired, pink-haired girl probably the most, no matter what. Unless either A, they're not a very good character, like they have nothing appealing about them, or B, if one of the other characters is just really fantastic, which has happened before when I've read Karages. I usually only go down one Karage route, and you might think that's a waste. I just can't get into, once I'm invested in one romance, I can't let myself get reinvested into another. As soon as I'm all for one romance, if I start playing another, I can't get into it anymore because I got so invested. And I just feel bad that I'm not going on the other girl's route, especially if I see the girl within that route. I just feel bad. So that's just not how I enjoy Karages. I mean, I used to do that. I used to go down every route, but eventually I just stopped because I realized I enjoy them so much more when I go. And plus, they would just get so long and boring if I went down all 4 or 5 routes, every single Karage. I would never finish any. I would never get done. I would get so sick of the medium before that. And I am getting to the point where I'm pretty much almost done with Karages, I would say. I still read them because I think they're fun and they're relaxing to read. But I am getting to the point where they're all kind of running together. They're not that original, and they're cute, but I've read over 50. So, at a certain point you felt like you gotta come to an end. But that's the reason I don't do reviews, is because it's all dependent on my subjective taste. Not every Karage is the same, but since they don't really have much of a story, there's really not much to say. It's like, I like this girl because she appeals to me, and that's really all I could say about any Karage. So, that's why I don't do that. So yes, Muramasa. I mentioned it in my Muv-Luv Alternative review, but I did not like that game. And that is a weird one, though. It's not that I hate that game, with a passion or anything. I just didn't like the game, and the reason is, I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, and people are going to hate me for saying it, but this Muramasa is the most boring game I have ever read in my life. I'm not joking. It is unbelievably boring for something that actually has good qualities to it. So let's go over the positives first. The setting is different for a visual novel. I know that's not much of a praise, but it's at least it's not just, there is a high school in it, but that part doesn't last too terribly long. And, it's kind of a different kind of time period, different kind of setting, and so that's all nice. The other thing is, I think the character interactions themselves are really good, and the characters themselves are they're definitely better than your standard visual novel character. The characters in Muramasa are way better than the characters in, like, say, Love Level Alternative, but not as good as the characters in Rose Gun's Days. But still, give them credit for what they are. They're definitely more in depth. They definitely have more care put into them than that. But it's the most boring visual novel I've ever read. And even though the plot is not even full of uninteresting twists, the plot itself on paper is not even boring. But why is it the most boring visual novel I've ever read? Two factors, only two factors, kill this game. And I could never, ever do an in-depth review of this game because it would drain my soul talking about this game. Like when I played Muramasa, I felt like my soul was dying. I was like, I have never been this bored in my life. Because this was before I was dropping visual novels. Let me get to what's boring about it first, and then I'll go into that. The fights and the info dumps. These two factors alone kill the visual novel. The fights go on for an eternity. I know some people are like, well, you could just skip the text. I'm like, no, if I'm doing that, then I might as well just turn off the visual novel. If I'm just skipping stuff, I might as well turn it off. Because what I'm saying, the second I do that, I'm saying this visual novel is boring. And if I'm saying it's boring, then it isn't worth reading because it's not entertaining me. I'm not trying to prove to anything, oh, look how sophisticated I am for reading this visual novel. No, I'm not trying to prove anyone to that. I'm trying to have a good time, right? And that's the reason I read visual novels. Any visual novel I read, I want to have a good time. And that's kind of what Rose Gun's Days taught me, is it taught me, oh, this is what it means to have a good time. I've been bored reading a lot of visual novels. And I really shouldn't be doing that anymore. But the fights in Muramasa, they go on for just an eternity. It's no visual novel that I've read comes close to how long the fights are. Like Fate Stay Night, those fights do not even touch how long these fights get. It was mind-boggling. Like, it's like the first fight in the game in the prologue was, it was kind of long for what it was. I don't know these characters. Why do I care about this fight? But it was like 15 minutes, I think. So it wasn't too bad, but it was still kind of long for a first kind of fight thing. But then you get to the first real fight in the game after like 10 hours of buildup or something like that. And it's between two characters, not to spoil anything, it's really not a spoiler, but it's between two characters you really don't know that well. And so I have no investment in the fight, and the fight is like 3 hours long. I'm not even joking you. The first main fight is 3 hours long. Because he's so detailed about everything. The writer, apparently he's like a sword master in real life or something like that. I don't care. I don't care what he is. He needs to write more, engaging fights. Fights that take this long are not fun to read, okay? It's like even hardcore wrestling fans who really love, their wrestlers. Like, even if you got Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker in their prime in a match, they would not want a match that lasted over an hour. Right? And these fights are just ridiculous. They go on for an eternity. My friend was enjoying the game as well, and he got to this first fight. He couldn't even get to the end of it. Because he just was like, no, this is insane. And I agree, it is insane. Like, fights are about keeping a sense of tension, sense of an adrenaline rush, And that's not going to last for 3 hours. After, I was just like, I felt like I was watching some really badly paced shonen anime. I'm like, when is this fight going to end? Like, when is this fight going to end? And then they just get worse and worse as the game goes on. The fights just go on forever. The only thing that changes is at least you know the character a little more, so you can give a shit about, give a shit about them a little bit more. But god dang, I could not do that. And then there's the info dumps, and I swear to God, in the first 10 hours of the game, there's like a 30-minute info dump. And the main character at the time, or whatever, falls asleep to it. I'm like, great. The author's self-aware that his game is super boring. He just spent 30 minutes, like, kind of going over the setting, explaining various things about the world, various things, and it's just, I was like, I can't believe what I'm reading. Like, I have no reason to care about this setting, author. You have not given me adequate reason to give a shit. So that's the main thing. Is I think the writer, he was a little. I hate to say this phrase, but he was a little up his ass when he wrote this. It's like, look, I bet you think this is very interesting, but you need to make the audience care first. Like, I would have forgiven Muramasa if it was just a martial arts story, right? If it was just a story about sword fighting. And I'm like, fine, you can have your super detailed fights because that's what the visual novel is. But to me, who's reading it, I'm like, I care about these other kind of factors. I care about seeing the characters interact. I care about these political things going on. I care about the story itself. You know, I'm not, and you're asking me to get into all these super long fights and be, interested in all that. And it was just, no. Like, it was too much. I could understand if it was like Phoenix Wright or Umineko, where it's not really a fight, it's a strategic affair, because it's a strategic affair, And I get the fights are strategic in Muramasa, but it's not the same thing. It's like, it just... Reading this, I'm sorry I didn't like this, guys, but it killed my soul to read this game. And I think that about wraps it up for my thoughts at the moment. The next thing I think I'll do is I'm going to review Phoenix Wright 1 through 6. I will do a little podcasty thing again about them, unless you guys don't like it, in which case I will wait on that and do a proper review. But Phoenix Wright 1 through 6, I think, is what I'm going to review, because I actually recently read through all of those games. I finished Spirit of Justice like about 3 or 4 months ago, and I think I'm ready to give my thoughts on all 6 of those games and how I feel about the series as a whole. And I'm just about done with Great Ace Attorney as well. So look forward to that. Maybe I'll be able to do proper stuff if I get my booth situation sorted out, but until then, I'm sorry that this is the way things are going to be, but tell me what you guys think. If you got any complaints, then please let me know, and give me any ideas what you guys think I should talk about in the future, and we'll see what we can do. Alright guys, have a great day, and this is Hyperneeds 91. Or just Hyperneeds, I don't go by 91 anymore, do I?